Welcome to the Pearl Fellowship. I'm Kelsey Bolander, director here at Zoe's House, and you are a part of a significant group of people who have invested into the spirit of adoption here in Kansas City and across the nation. We're so grateful for you. And tonight, we want to give you a gift. We want to bring you into the storyline and show you how you have a profound part in everything that happens here. You're going to hear from our staff a few stories of what's been going on the last few months here at the agency. And we're also going to bring in folks from Washington, D.C., leaders who know that the adoption movement is the next frontier of the pro-life movement. Leaders who have championed this message: Senator Josh Hawley, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, and Anna Pilato, Special Advisor to the Administration at HHS. So welcome. We're so glad you've joined us tonight, and we want you to be a part of what's happening here in the adoption movement in Kansas City and across the nation.
My name is Christina Stiles. I'm the Director of Case Management for Zoe's House. I grew up in the pro-life movement. My parents were very involved in prayer for the ending of abortion and for the saving of lives. And coming from that background, when I first started working for Zoe's House in 2015, when our agency opened, I definitely came from the mindset in thinking about adoption, my primary focus was on babies. That's the first thing everybody thinks about. Everybody thinks about babies, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the Lord did something really interesting with this agency, in that the very first expectant mom we worked with was really instrumental in shaping what our case management was going to look like for our entire organization. She was an incredibly intelligent college student. She wasn't a drug addict. She wasn't a prostitute. In fact, in almost every possible way, she was more than capable enough of parenting her child on her own. But she came to us out of a desire to give her son a story and to give her son a future that she would not be able to provide for him as a single parent. And she came with the language of wanting to change her storyline. What that did for us as an organization was it caused us to open up the way we saw every expectant mom who walked through our doors. That we truly believe that choosing to make an adoption plan for your child is worthy of being treated with dignity and honor and the love of Christ. And that had a big impact on myself. That had a big impact on all of our staff. And we found that subsequently, the next few moms we worked with, their stories were very similar. In working with that very first expectant mom, the very first few expectant moms we served at Zoe's House, we were so impacted by the deep love that these women, and sometimes their partners as well, had for their children they were carrying. That's a story that isn't talked about in adoption. We always think about the babies. We often think about the adoptive families who were so excited to welcome in these babies. But the missing story in the big picture are these birth families, mothers, fathers, siblings, grandparents, people for many layers back, generations even, whose lives are radically impacted by this one choice to place this child for adoption. And as an organization, we felt from the Lord right from the beginning such a powerful drive to focus on care for our birth families, to treat them with dignity, to treat them with honor, to look at each person as a person worthy of respect, worthy of considering more than just this one decision. So our case management developed rapidly in those first few clients around this idea of these incredible people who are making this incredibly sacrificial decision based out of love, based out of desire for a future for their child that they don't believe that they can give them. And so how can we do anything other than treating them as an individual person, then giving them the dignity of helping them to think through their own future and how we may be able to help them to reach some long-term goals? How can this big decision be used as a catalyst for positive change in their lives? And that was how our case management developed. It was the Lord bringing a couple of individuals and couples into the front door of our organization that caused us to pan out, to look at the bigger story and to kind of go, wait a minute, is anybody talking about this bigger story? We've got to jump in here. We're going to miss it.
My name is Angela Copeland, and I'm the Associate Director here at Zoe's House. And I love working here because adoption is really a huge part of my life. It's a huge part of who I am, actually. I am adopted, so I'm an adoptee. I was adopted when I was 8 years old. I'm also a birth mom. I made an adoption plan for my son when I was 18 years old, and I now have some contact with him and his family, and I'm just thankful for getting to know them. And I'm an adoptive mom, so I adopted my youngest, who's now 10, when he was 18 months old, and so obviously adoption is a huge part of who I am, and it's even more amazing that I get to work in this field, that I get to walk with adoptive families through the process and celebrate with them. And I also, because I'm the associate director, I kind of get to do a lot of different things. And one of my favorites is the few times that I get to talk to the expectant and the birth parents. And actually, I had a very busy week a couple of weeks ago. I actually got to take an expectant parent to a doctor's appointment. And the amazing thing is that in the car, talking to her, of course, I shared at some point that I'm a birth mom, and she started asking me, how did you do it? She felt a little unsure about her decision to make an adoption plan. How did you handle it? How did you do it? And I got to love on her a ton. I got to share the gospel with her because through my adoption plan, I really gave my life fully to the Lord. And so I got to tell her how Jesus made a difference in my life and how it was really Him who helped strengthen me, knowing that I'd made the right decision for my son because I wanted so much more for him than what I could provide at that time. And I got to share all of that with her. And so I love that I get to marry my faith with this adoption thing that the Lord has made such a huge part of my life. And I get to do it every day. So I really love at Zoe's House, we really take the time. That's one of the most important things for us, is take the time to walk this out with the expectant parents, with the birth parents. It doesn't just end after they place their baby. We get to walk it out with them all the way through.
Hi, my name is Nikki Pauls DeSimone. I'm the Director of Social Services for Zoe's House Adoption Agency. I have been here since the very beginning and really enjoy working here, really enjoy serving expectant and adoptive families here at Zoe's House. As the Director of Social Services, my role is that to assist the families, both the expectant parents and the adopting parents, but also to be a resource for our staff. We're a very collaborative staff and we work really, really well together. And so the most efficient use of time for all of us sometimes is time spent together, brainstorming and sharing ideas. And as the social worker, I'm really glad to be a part of that. I am really glad to serve my coworkers and to serve the families for the past 5 years. When I think of some of my most favorite stories and most memorable stories, what sticks out in my mind a lot is with the adoptive parents and just how much they learn and grow and change through the process. As a social worker, I'm naturally inclined towards educating and sharing resources and information with others. And so to get to see that change and that growth happen during an adoption process is really rewarding. In the end, being able to see a successful adoption and knowing that I had some part of that, even if it was just to provide education, is really rewarding. Just last month in June, I was able to assist in an adoption, doing a lot more birth mother care than I had typically in my role. I was there with her, with this sweet young mama in the hospital, getting to talk with her, getting to see her bond with her son and nurture him and love on him I really feel that as an adoption social worker, there's absolutely nothing more humbling than sitting on the bed with a mom who is planning to make an adoption plan, talking with her, watching her pour all the love that she had in her heart over the past 9 months into this baby, knowing that she just has a few days, and being able to sit there with her and watch that was so amazing and really, really humbling for me to get to do that. In that moment, on her hospital bed that day in June, it was just to be there with her, to just watch this gorgeous little miracle, to fawn over him and how cute he was, and just to see the comfort and the confidence that she had in being a mom was very, very cool. And no amount of paperwork or no amount of anything I had to discuss with the attorneys or the hospital social worker or my coworkers was any bit more important at that moment. Again, it had been such a long time since I had been in that position, and it was so rewarding to be able to see that. So for me, I just felt that that was the most important thing that I could do and be there for her in that moment.
I'm Amy Kirby, and I am the newest employee at Zoe's House. My first official date will actually be August 1st. I've been kind of involved, just going to the banquets and knowing what's going on at Zoe's House, and I have a huge passion for adoption, mainly because I'm adopted, and I just love the idea of keeping babies safe and giving dignity to birth moms, and also giving hope for birth families. My adoption story started 60 years ago. My birth mom was in college. I think it was her senior year, and the first semester there, she realized she was pregnant, and she didn't tell anybody. She came home at Thanksgiving, and she told my birth father, and together they made a plan for an adoption. Kansas City was the adoption hub of the United States. A lot of it was because of where it was located. It was centrally located. Women would come on the train in secret, and they would be picked up at the train station and brought to 2424 Main, which is where the Willows was located. They were brought around to the back of the building and let out, and they were given false names to kind of keep their identity secret. So that's what I love about Zoe's House, is just the more dignity and the more freedom to be who they are, these birth moms to be who they are this day and age. My birth mom came, she acted like she was going back to school for the second semester. She didn't tell her parents. And she came to Kansas City and came to the Willows and lived there until May, when I was born on May 20th, 1961. And then she left the Willows and came home just like she'd been away at college. Both my adoptive parents died before I had my own child. And after I had my own child, I started kind of wondering who in my birth mom or my birth father was in me and was in my son. I came across a baby book that talked about my adoption story, and it said that I was born at through the Kansas City, Missouri Adoption Agency. So I contacted the adoption agency, and they sent me a packet of information, and they also said that they would do a trace and find my birth mom for me. Literally, the identifying information, they pulled a yearbook off the shelf, and there was my birth mom. So it was such an amazing experience meeting my birth mom for the first time and looking at her face and seeing her eyes, and for the first time seeing my eyes and looking down at her hands, and for the first time seeing my hands. And it was also freeing for her because it was a secret that she had kept all this time. I can't remember. I think I was maybe 29 when I met her for the first time, and she still had not really shared the story of giving a baby up for adoption. Another thing I really haven't shared, that she also named me after my birth father. My birth father's name was James, and so she named me Jamie. And then my adoptive parents dropped the J, and my name is Amy, A-M-I-E. I feel like I carry a part of her and my birth father, and then also my adoptive parents in my name. It's kind of threefold. But I'm really excited to join Zoe's House because I really want to connect the area of that Kansas City was the adoption hub of the United States in the early 1900s, and just that people felt safe coming to Kansas City, and that just adoption was happening. And so I really desire to bring that mantle to Zoe's House and make it a place where women they already feel safe coming here, but just continue to grow that. Also, my sister, her son just this last year adopted through Zoe's House a baby girl. So I feel like the legacy started, in 1961 and is going on now. And so anyways, I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. I just want to hear your stories and want to continue to let you get to know me and my story in a deeper way. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Anna Pilato. I'm the Senior Advisor for External Affairs at the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. ACF oversees much of human services and has some 60-plus programs under its purview. A few of those programs include child welfare, child care, Head Start, Office of Family Assistance, which includes TANF, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, Runaway and Homeless Youth Programs, Office of Trafficking in Person, and a host of other important programs. ACF is a unique federal agency because we're on a mission to strengthen families, individuals, youth, and children to achieve their fullest potential and reach a point of self-sufficiency. ACF is able to do this by empowering our communities through our two pillars, primary prevention and economic mobility. We believe that in regard to primary prevention, we need to reach out to our communities to get to the root of the issue and not just treat our communities after they seek out our services. We also need to examine ways that we can affect our communities through the lens of economic mobility. The goal of economic mobility is to create conditions that will support independent and resilient individuals, families, and communities to achieve financial mobility and opportunities that allow them to grow their capacity, and where possible, free themselves from reliance on external support. We believe that we can and need to change the culture around human services to serve people in a way that can uplift them before they're at their lowest point. And we want to do that with dignity and respect. The community-based approach to both of these pillars is important because that is where collaboration among the critical stakeholders like you who affect the lives of children and families daily can come together to make needed change. Along with ACF's other initiatives, ACF launched another initiative geared towards achieving permanency for children waiting in the foster care system. In November 2019, ACF launched the Assistant Secretary's All-In Foster Adoption Challenge. With the help of states, nonprofits, local communities, and faith partners such as Zoe's House, the challenge is aimed at finding homes for waiting children in the foster care system and supporting the families that open their hearts to them. The Trump administration has proven to be one of the most pro-life, pro-family, and pro-faith-based administrations to date. The administration has made significant policy changes and has released a number of executive orders affirming the administration's commitment to life and strengthening the preservation of the family. The president has appointed top administration officials who are pro-life, and he has worked to appoint hundreds of pro-life justices and judges. This is a priority for the president, as he is also the first sitting president to attend and speak at the annual March for Life rally in Washington, D.C. In an effort to solidify his support for families and adoptive youth, the president in June signed the executive order on strengthening the child welfare system for America's children. This historic executive order, EO, aims to improve the outcomes for children and families. This EO does that by focusing on 3 areas of action: improving partnerships, improving resources, and improving oversight. The President's executive order is a call to immediate action with urgent focus on our most vulnerable children and families. This executive order brings all adoption partners to the table, including faith-based organizations and houses of worship, to support our goals of keeping children safe at home whenever possible and creating permanency for the thousands of children waiting in foster care. Currently, there are approximately 430,000 children in the foster care system. Of those 430,000 children, there are nearly 124,000 children in foster care who have a plan for adoption but have not yet achieved the permanency of a forever family. Each year, close to 20,000 youth age out of care without the support of a loving, permanent family. Many of these young men and women will experience higher rates of homelessness, incarceration, and unemployment after they leave foster care. Through 3 key reforms to the child welfare system outlined in the executive order, this administration is standing up for vulnerable children and families, pursuing child safety as well as permanency and child and family well-being. On a personal note, adoption has touched my life in a very special and positive way. I have the pleasure of being godmother and aunt to my niece, Catherine. She came into our family at just 3 days old as a result of my sister and brother-in-law going through the adoption process through a private Christian adoption agency. Her biological mom made the choice of not terminating her pregnancy and had the desire for her child be placed in a loving forever home. The outcome of that decision has brought great joy, along with obviously the challenges that come with raising a child. But she is God's gift to our family and to those Catherine will touch in her journey throughout her life. Finally, I would like to commend the incredible work of Zoe's House, who are serving birth moms and babies in Missouri and Kansas and adoptive families nationwide. What is unique and special about Zoe's House is their mission to provide support services to moms and their babies before, during, and after the birth of their children. By providing crucial wraparound services to those in need, it will positively affect families for generations to come. This continuum of care and holistic approach is needed throughout our country, and they are a model to other organizations who serve this vulnerable population. I find it heartening that on their website, it is plainly and boldly stated that this organization was founded on the belief that children are a gift from God. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, and I'm grateful for the work of this and other organizations who serve in this capacity and promote life and adoption. Thank you, Zoe's House, for making an impact on your community and on the future of this nation.
Hi, Kelsey, and everyone from your team at Zoe's. And hello to everyone celebrating the work of Zoe's House tonight. Thanks so much for asking me to send a short message. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there with you in person, but it is a tremendous pleasure to stand with you in spirit and in shared commitment to the cause of life. And I'm happy to provide you with an update on what's going on here in Washington. But before I do that, I just want to underscore my belief that the most important work being done on behalf of innocent, unborn children is the work that you're doing. Compassionate and loving care for expectant moms and for parents who are trying to adopt, I think, is the most vivid expression of God's love for each of us as adopted sons and daughters. It's really your work that gives credence to our words. The world hears us make the case for life and advocate for just laws that respect the dignity of the unborn, and that's hugely important. That case becomes harder to ignore, though, when they see you living out these convictions with your generous, selfless support of women and their children. I was reminded of this recently and the importance of it with the situation we had in our office. Last year, I had the honor of nominating an incredible woman as an angel in adoption from Missouri. Her name's Kim McDaniel. Kim is a NICU nurse from Columbia who adopted her daughter, whose name is Brooklyn, from the neonatal intensive care unit and embraced the opportunity to be Brooklyn's advocate and care for her complex medical needs, and they were very complex. A few weeks ago, Kim contacted my office because Brooklyn was experiencing some major complications related to a tumor in her mouth. She needed a surgery that could only be performed in Boston, but Kim couldn't get the Medicaid bureaucracy to approve it. So she called my office, and I'm glad she did because sometimes it's really fun to be a United States Senator. We were able to break through all of that bureaucracy and the red tape and get her the help she needed. And I'm happy to report that on Monday, Brooklyn got that surgery. She's got a long way to go, and so I'd ask you to keep her and Kim in your prayers, but she's making progress. And so I just want to say thank you again for all that you are doing. Thank you for supporting Zoe's House. Thank you for being an embodiment of the principles and the commitments that we believe in. That commitment to basic equality, to the dignity of every single human life made in the image of God. Thank you for living that out. Thank you for expressing it. Thank you for putting it on display where all can see. And thank you for giving me the privilege of working with you, speaking with you tonight, and of representing you here in Washington. God bless you.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, and I am so glad Kelsey reached out and asked me to be a part of the Zoe's House webinar today. I'd love to be there in person, but this is a fun way for us to get to chat about something that we care about so much, and that is adoption. I was so blessed to get to meet Kelsey last year when we both had a chance to share at the Life Choice Center for Women's annual banquet in Harrisonville, and I was just blown away by Kelsey's story, her passion for children, her passion for life, and her love of the Lord, and how she has really put all of that to work, following Jesus' lead, and now has this amazing ministry that is connecting children with families. And I couldn't commend you more for the great work that you're doing there, and I'm glad to share about this. We share a love for adoption. As I shared at the banquet, I shared with Kelsey, I know from personal experience that adoption is a wonderful way that God can make a family. My husband and I have tried to adopt for many years, and it hadn't worked out. We'd gone to various adoption agencies. Unfortunately, Zoe's House wasn't available several years ago, and we hadn't had any luck, and it was a hard time. We prayed, and sometimes you just wonder what God's doing, but we just had to trust Him, and it just hadn't worked out. And then I had the opportunity and was asked to run for state representative. I'd been a teacher teaching home economics at Belton School District, and so it was a wonderful opportunity I had. My husband and I prayed, and we felt like it was the right thing to do, and then was elected. And of all the things I wanted to do when I went to Jefferson City, one thing that stood out is that perhaps maybe I could be used to help improve Missouri's adoption laws, because in the process that my husband and I had gone through, we discovered that Missouri's adoption laws were antiquated. They hadn't been updated since the early 50s. And as a result, there were very few adoptions occurring in Missouri. And so sometimes we don't understand why things happen to us and why adoption had not worked out for us, but we thought maybe this is a reason. Maybe I could be used by God to help other families to improve the adoption laws to make it easier in Missouri. And so I put my heart and soul in that, and it just worked out. It was a God thing that there was a statewide committee that had been formed right before I was elected that involved adoption lawyers, families, parents, social workers, attorneys, all entities that work with adoption to look at how to improve Missouri's adoption laws. And I got appointed to this statewide committee and worked with them to overhaul Missouri's laws, and it took 3 years, but we passed 2 major pieces of legislation to make adoptions more consistent and easier, and to encourage birth mothers and to provide them with the help and assistance they need, but also to help enable open adoptions and other things that would be helpful moving forward. And then God in His goodness intervened, and my husband got a call from the long-lost adoption agency that we worked with years before but hadn't heard from, that said, hey, a birth mother has chosen you and a little girl's been born, and can you be here in an hour? And so my husband called me. I just spoke with some youth at a youth leadership day in the district, and I was driving through traffic, and he told me the great news and said, we got to get to Kansas City as quick as possible, and can you get home? And anyway, that's how I became a mom, 1 hour notice. And it was really an amazing experience, because when we met with our social worker at McDonald's before we went and met the baby, she sat down with us and she had all these papers in front of her, and she said, now, there's been a new law passed in Missouri that gives you the right to see the medical information before you adopt, and it's changed the finalization period from 9 months to 6 months, and she's going through all this paperwork, and I'm just in a fog sitting there going, I know that because I wrote that. And, I never thought we'd gone past hope that it would actually impact our lives, but God in His time made it possible, and so that's how Tiffany joined our family and how God made us a family, and we're so thankful for her. She just turned 21. She'll be going in her senior year this year, plans to be an elementary teacher, and she is a blessing. And I know every child is a blessing. Every child has a plan and a purpose from God. And we need to help every life be able to come to life. We need to encourage mothers to have the babies, to choose life. We need to enable that, and we need to help facilitate adoptions. So I appreciate so much the ministry of Zoe's House and what you are doing there. And now that I'm in Congress, kind of fast forward, I chose after Tiffany came in our lives to stay home and not run for re-election, and I got to be a full-time mom for 9 years, and then I was asked to run for Congress, and we felt like God called me to do that, and as a family we made that decision. We ran, and just so blessed to have the opportunity now to fight for life, to fight for adoption here in Washington, D.C. And so Kelsey asked me to share maybe some about the legislation that's going on here, some of the actions in Washington dealing with adoption, dealing with life. And first and foremost, I want to let you know that there's a lot of support for adoption here in Congress. There's many members of Congress who have adopted, who children is from, God made from adoption into their family, brought them in. And there is a caucus that we have called the Congressional Coalition on Adoption. It's been up here on Capitol Hill since 1985, and one of the activities the coalition does is it sponsors an Angels in Adoption program where each member of Congress is able to nominate a family from their district that has really done a lot to epitomize the beauty of adoption. And then they get to come to Washington, D.C. There's a special couple-day program with lunches and meals and speakers. And I've really enjoyed getting to nominate and bring families from my district here for that. This same group also sponsors an internship from a child who had grown up in the foster care system. And they have an opportunity to come here and work with a member of Congress. We've had last year a girl come and join us, and she was a delight and a blessing. Not only was it fun for me to get to know her, but also she has a chance to share her story and educate us on the foster care system, things that maybe we need to improve to make it better and to help kids who are involved in that system. And then they advocate for various policy changes while they're here. So that's one thing. There's also a foster care caucus, which also allows for a job shadowing day, and we've participated in that in our office, and it's been really positive. There's a lot going on as far as protecting faith-based adoption agencies. There have been attacks to organizations that are very concerning. For instance, Pennsylvania and the city of Philadelphia has said that basically Catholic Charities cannot operate anymore because they refuse to allow an agency to operate if they decide to place children with a father and a mother, with a two-parent household. And if they don't subscribe to placing them in a same-sex household, if that is, it doesn't matter if it's against your faith, then Philadelphia says we are not going to allow you to place children anymore. And that is working its way through the system. It's going actually to the Supreme Court. I have signed on to and co-sponsored an amicus brief before the Supreme Court laying out the case for allowing agencies to operate according to their faith, and it's actually discriminatory for the city of Philadelphia and other government agencies to say that just because you have a faith in your organization that you can no longer participate in placing children, and there's such a tremendous need. We have a shortage of foster parents, and we need Christians to step up and be foster parents. In fact, Christians who are foster parents have a a much greater likelihood of staying in the program and going ahead and maybe adopting themselves. There's a 80% dropout rate the first 2 years in foster care as a foster care parent, but yet the 20%, many of them are people of faith. And I think that it just makes sense. It's because it's a mission for them. It's a calling. And while it is hard, God gives them the ability and the strength and the grace to be foster parents. And so it's not surprising. So it doesn't make any sense at all for government agencies, whether they be a city or a state or the federal government, to preclude that from happening. So we have also co-sponsored some letters, which have been successful. I've supported the Health and Human Services saying that they're not going to enforce the Obama-era rules where, under President Obama, they said if you're a faith-based agency, you risk losing your funding and licensure for seeking forever homes where faith is a key. And thankfully, the Trump administration has said and is now not adhering to that rule, and they are going ahead and allowing faith-based agencies to work with the federal government. So I'm very thankful for that. But just in general, I'm going to continue to fight for faith-based agencies like Zoe's House, like the ones that we've worked with that are making such a difference. And I'm going to continue to be a voice for life itself. It is just tragic that so many babies never have the opportunity to live. And we need to do everything possible to stop that. I have sponsored a couple of bills. One would defund Planned Parenthood to make sure that they cannot receive any taxpayer funding for their services. Now, right now, the taxpayers do not pay for abortions, so that's good. But Planned Parenthood applies for and receives other government funding through Medicaid for other medical services that they provide at their agencies. And so that still enables them to receive hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. This must stop. All taxpayer dollars that go to agencies that provide abortions. Planned Parenthood is the #1 agency, but there are other entities, there are other hospitals that perform abortions in our country. And so I introduced a second bill just saying no taxpayer funding should go to abortion. And we're going to continue to fight for that. I sent a letter to the FDA asking them to stop giving grant money to an agency that does research using fetal baby body parts. These are body parts that are from aborted babies. It is just abhorrent to me, and I think every taxpayer that realizes that this is going on. And thankfully, after I sent the letter, the FDA canceled the contract with the company that was doing that. They've done that twice now, and they've set up a new protocol for research to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I'm very grateful for the Trump administration, who is pro-life, who has made this change. Because whether you're Democrat or Republican, it's over 70% of taxpayers do not want their dollars going to research like this. It's just abhorrent. We were successful as well advocating for the Trump administration to change another rule that allowed Planned Parenthood to get family planning money. And this, I wrote a letter and got a lot of my members of Congress to sign on to it to ask the HHS to stop the funding for Title X family planning program for Planned Parenthood. They changed the rules such that it was very difficult for Planned Parenthood to apply. The rules said you had to have totally separate facilities, you had to have totally separate financial record keeping and other regulations like that. And as a result, Planned Parenthood said, okay, we're not going to apply anymore. This is just too difficult. And so we had a victory there because of the changes that the Trump administration made, because they listened to the letter from myself and others, that now Planned Parenthood is receiving $60 million less in taxpayer dollars. Now, they still are receiving money from other pots, and that is going to have to be done with legislation. Unfortunately, the Trump administration can't change the Medicaid rules. That has to be a change of law. But I'm committed to trying to do that as much as possible. I want to tell you about another bill that we've been fighting for here on Capitol Hill. It's called the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. And you've probably heard there's been some states that have passed laws supporting late-term abortions. It's just abhor it. Virginia and New York are two examples. And we have heard and know there are instances where during an abortion, a baby is born alive. Depending on your perspective, some would say it's a botched abortion, those who wanted the baby to die. But we would say it's a rescue when the baby was actually born alive. And we want to ensure that if that child is born alive, that they receive the same medical care as another baby down the hall whose parents wanted that baby and it was born healthy. That baby from the botched abortion, if you call it that, I call it the miracle abortion, would be entitled to go to the emergency room to have the doctor and the medical care to save its life. And so this bill under Nancy Pelosi refuses to get a hearing. They won't vote it out of committee. But there's another method where we can bring a bill out of committee and bring it to the House floor directly, and that's through a discharge petition. If you get 218 members of the House to sign this petition, you can bring any bill just right out of committee, right to a vote on the House floor. It's used very rarely, but it is a way that we can do that. And so every Republican has signed on to this discharge petition, and 3 Democrats. But sadly, even one of those Democrats who was brave to sign this bill, basically just saying if a baby is born, they deserve medical care, they've been defeated in a primary. Those on the radical left, the pro-abortion side, came after this Democrat for being pro-life, and he's lost now. So it's a really sad state that we are in now, that we have leaders here that don't even respect life enough to say if a baby is born alive, they deserve medical care. But we're going to continue to fight for that. It's the right thing to do, and I'm hopeful eventually, as more and more people are aware of this, that we will get it done. So rest assured, there are many of us here on Capitol Hill that love life, that appreciate how God enables life, how He makes each one of us in His mother's womb. He crafts us together, and He had with a plan and a purpose. And we will continue to fight to make sure every one of those babies has an opportunity to live to their God-given full potential. And I am going to continue to support adoption because it is a great way that God can make a family, and I know that personally, and you all do with your affiliation through Zoe's House. So please continue to support this very, very important ministry, and I look forward to hopefully meeting many of you and seeing you in person. So thank you, and God bless.
Hello, I'm Becky Jackman. On behalf of the staff and board of directors at Zoe's House, we hope you've enjoyed this evening. We had an incredible time putting this together for you to enjoy for tonight, and so we want to say thank you. Each of you are a part of a significant storyline at Zoe's House. You are shaping history, and we want to thank you for joining us and supporting us at Zoe's House. As we close, we want you to know that we're incredibly moved by each of your generous gifts to us. Some who have given grants, and those of you who have written notes to encourage us at Zoe's House. Thank you. We treasure each story and unfolding story that God brings through our doors, and we want to let you know that you are a significant part in Zoe's House. And without you, each mission would not be complete. We want to say thank you. Finally, during these unsettling times, we want you to know that we are praying for you. We're praying for your health, for wholeness, and for you to experience the Psalm 91 covering during this time. Please let us know how you enjoyed tonight by leaving us a comment on this video or emailing us at info@zoeshouseadoptions.com. We hope that each of you enjoyed our gift to you tonight. Thank you, and good night from Kansas City.